Hi, welcome to this Blender video tutorial entitled Vertices, Edges, and Faces. As I noted in an earlier video tutorial, although it does have a number of non-mesh tools, Blender is primarily a polygonal mesh modeling application. Blender mesh objects have 4 subcomponents. 3 of these subcomponents, vertices, edges, and faces, form the polygonal mesh structure. The other subcomponent is the object's center point, which in Blender is referred to as the origin. The origin influences an object's translations, such as position, rotation, and scale. To demonstrate the structural mesh subcomponents, I have in my scene a cube object and a cone object. I have also turned off the Translate Manipulator widget, and the display is in wireframe mode. I will select the cube object. To access and edit the mesh's structural subcomponents, we need to press the Tab button, which places the object in edit mode and exposes the structural mesh for editing. A vertex is a point in 3-dimensional space. It also contains other information such as color influence, vector normal, and texture coordinates. Blender's cube mesh has 8 vertices. They are represented by these black dots that turn white like this when selected. Notice in the Transform panel of the 3D Editor Viewport Properties panel that each vertex has an X, Y, and Z location. For instance, this vertex is located at X equals -1, Y equals -1, and Z equals -1. If I press the G key, grab, with this vertex selected, I can move it to a different location. Note the changes in the Transform panel. I will right-click to escape the translation. By default, when entering edit mode, Blender places the mesh in Vertex Select mode. The control button for Vertex Select mode is located here on the 3D Editor Viewport header. Notice that in addition to turning the selected vertex white, Blender also indicates the influence associated with this vertex by these yellow lines that fade out over distance. An edge is a connection between 2 vertices. Here I will press the Edge Select Mode button on the 3D Editor Viewport header and select an edge. This cube has 12 edges. An edge in Blender is represented by a line, black when unselected and white when selected. Notice in the Transform panel of the 3D Editor Viewport Properties that each edge also has an X, Y, and Z location. For instance, this edge is located at X equals 0, Y equals -1, and Z equals -1. Now actually the location indicates the center of the edge, which is why the panel is called median rather than location. If I press the G key, grab, with this edge selected, I can move it to a different location. Note the changes in the Transform panel. I will right-click to escape the translation. A face is a closed set of edges. I'll press the Face Select Mode button in the 3D Editor Viewport header, and I'll select a face. The cube object has 6 faces. A face is represented in Blender by a black square, which turns white when selected. Also, the edges that form the face are represented in yellow to indicate the influence of the face. The surface of the face is indicated by a screen of dots. In Blender, there are 2 types of faces. One consists of 4 edges in a closed set, which is called a quad face. The cube object faces are quad faces. I'll tab out of edit mode and select the cone object and tab back into edit mode. Now here's an example of another type of Blender face, which consists of 3 edges in a closed set called a triangle face. Faces in Blender can only be 3-sided or 4-sided. I'll tab out of edit mode and select the cube object and tab back into edit mode. I'll select this face. Notice in the Transform panel of the 3D Editor Viewport Properties that each face also has an X, Y, and Z location. For instance, this face is located at x equals 0, y equals -1, and z equals 0. Again, the location indicates the center of the face, which is why the panel is called median rather than location. Now if I press the G key, grab, with this face selected, I can move it to a different location. Note the changes in the transform panel. I'll right-click to escape the translation. A polygon is generally considered as a collection of faces, which is why Blender mesh objects are referred to as polygons.